Good morning, everybody. It's 9:02 a.m. on September 28th, 2023, and we'll call this meeting of the Board of Directors for the Animal Service Center of the Mesilla Valley to order. And if you all would rise and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And if we can have a roll call, please.
Let's see. Board Member Ward is here. Board Member Bencomo?
Present.
Board Member Ainsworth, am I correct? Weir, I'm sorry.
Present.
My apologies. Board Member Weir. Board Member Flores? Here. Board Member Shelo Hernandez is absent. Board Member Gandara is absent. Board Member Coran is absent. Chair Sanchez?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Becky. All right. Then we're on to the approval of our agenda. If I can get a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
So moved.
A motion by Councilor Flores,
Second.
a second by Ms. Weir. Okay.
Board Member Bencomo? We're approving the agenda.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's
Board
all
Member
right.
Weir.
Approve. Yes, ma'am.
Board Member Flores?
Sorry,
We're
your
approving
vote.
the agenda.
Oh, yes, yes.
Thank you. Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
And I will mention that Board Member Ganda has joined us.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem.
And I approve the agenda.
Thank you. All right, the agenda is approved, 5-0. All right, we'll move on to reports and, skipping ahead here. All right, we're on to the meeting minutes. The approval of the minutes from the regular ASCMV board meeting held on August 24th, 2023. If I can get a motion and a second for discussion and approval, please.
So moved. Gandara.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. I will second the motion on the approval of the minutes. Are there any comments, changes to the meeting minutes? All right, not hearing or seeing any. If I can get a roll call, please, on the minutes of August 24th, 2023.
Board Member Weir?
Yes.
Board Member Flores?
Yes.
Board Member Gandara?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
And we welcome Board Member Shelo Hernandez. We're just voting on the minutes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Those meeting minutes are approved. All right, now we're on to reports and presentations from the city and county ACO. I don't know, Officer Halsey, okay, we'll start with the county ACO. Perfect.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Brian Halsey. I'm the caseworker for Donana County Animal Control, here to give you the August 2023 minutes, or presentation, not minutes. Been a day already. Okay, so for August, we had 300 reported stray animals. We were able to pick up 238 stray animals. Out of those, there were 92 stray cats and 146 stray dogs. We had 13 sick or injured animals. 8 of them were cats and 5 were dogs. We had 25 owner surrender animals, and they were all dogs. We had a jump in owner surrenders for August. This is our reported stray animal calls for the 4-year comparison. We were pretty high for August, so I know you guys were probably asked the reason why we had so many stray calls and so many picked up is because we're almost fully staffed, so we have more staff to get to calls quicker. So we were able to get to more calls as we normally would have. Our 4-year field return. Our field return for August was 21, but that's going to be offset later in the presentation for our deferred intakes. We had a pretty high number for deferred intakes. So these are additional animals picked up. So we had 0 owner surrender cats. We had 25 owner surrender dogs. We had 13 sick or injured animals. We had 12 welfare hold animals. Again, that's if a sheriff unit, border patrol, anybody that's detaining someone and they have animals, that's what those are usually for. We had 2 cruelty cases in August. with a total of 3 dogs for that. We had 0 shelter quarantines. We had 7 home quarantines. We had 2 cases, and we are currently holding 2 animals at our live evidence facility awaiting for court proceedings. We had 1 rabies submission, and it turned out negative. And then again, this is why we didn't have as many RTOs, return to owners. It's because we had 52 diverted intakes, which is pretty high for us. That's the highest number I've seen since we started counting them. We had 473 education, and our total calls was 861 for the month of August. This is our broken down for district. For District 1, we had no cats and 5 dogs. For District 2, we had 17 cats and 14 dogs. District 3, we had 27 cats and 29 dogs. That was one of our main focus areas for August. District 4 was another targeted one. We had 24 cats and 25 dogs, and for some reason, Anthony and Barino, District 5, we had a very big uptake in stray dogs for August. We had 11 cats and 42 dogs. District 6, we had no cats and 7 dogs, and District 7, we had 13 cats and 24 dogs, which is about normal for every month. This is our stray cats picked up by district. And these are our stray dogs picked up per district. As you can see in District 5, it got a pretty high rise in August. And I'll go slow on this one. This is our 25 owner surrenders. So we had 3 that they just weren't able to keep on the property, and they didn't want to get citations, so the owner surrendered them. We had 4 that were involved in livestock or vicious attacks. We had 5 that the people were unable to take care of them. We had 3 that were aggressive. We had 2 that were for behavior issues. Again, we had the 2 cruelty cases. The other dog was owner surrendered later. That was involved in the cruelty case. We had 2 that they just didn't have time for the animals. They didn't want them anymore, so they owner surrendered them. We had 1 where the animal was not allowed at the women's shelter that they were going to, so they had to owner surrender it if they were wanting to go to the shelter. We had 1, which was kind of odd for us. I guess they were letting the dog unrestrained, and it kept bringing home dead animals. So they didn't want that anymore, so they owner surrendered it. And then we had 1, they said that the dog needed a better home, so they owner surrendered it. And for that, it's time for questions.
Are there any questions on the presentation?
I have a question.
Yes, Council Flores, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for your presentation. So August, there was an extraordinary number of animals brought to the shelter. Was that it? Or, I mean, that you...
I wouldn't say that were brought to the shelter. I would say that was about average, but we had an uptick in animals in certain districts.
Oh.
Anthony and Barino was a big district for us in August, and I couldn't tell you why.
Okay.
The only thing I could think is that we were doing our ACES project in that area, and so that got more attention, and so people were calling in more in that area. That would be the only thing that I could think of for that district.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Flores. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Jimenez, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Excellent. How are you doing?
Good, good.
We're on Thursday. It's almost Friday.
Yes, Friday Eve. And I hope this loads. Here we go. So good morning, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Gino Jimenez. I'm the Animal Control Supervisor for the city. I'm going to present to you our August numbers for 2023. Because we want to go back to 13. So for the month of August, we responded to 504 stray calls. Of those, 242 were GOA. We were able to apprehend 262. Of those, 219 were impounded at the Animal Service Center, 109 were dogs, and 110 were cats. We were successful in field RTOing 43 animals back to their owner out in the field. Of those, 14 were unsuccessful, and those were animals that had some sort of identification. However, for some reason, we weren't able to get it back to the owner. So that gave us a total of 57 identifiable animals. Here is our 3-year stray call comparison. Again, we did the 104, and for a grand total of 4,067 reported strays for the year. So I was asked to include my peak performance report on the bottom of the slide. So as you can see it on the bottom, our goal is and always will be to secure at least 65% of our stray calls, stray animals. Last month, I reported that we were able to meet that goal. However, we dipped down a little low this month, and we were at 64.1. Real close, but we still haven't met that mark. Here is our 3-year field RTO comparison. Again, we were able to RTO 43, giving us a grand total of 358. And again, my peak performance is that we would be able to field RTO 25% of all strays that are captured, and we were able to obtain a 13.7% success rate on that one. Our community cat program. We responded to 58 cats in traps. Of those, 5 were already marked for community cats, so we were able to release them. Again, that gives us a grand total of 526 trap calls, and 96 community cats were released. Reasons for owner surrendering animals is a big list, again, like it was last month. 8 dogs, owners were unable to care for. 8 puppies, owners were unable to care for. 4 for dog bites. 3 cats for lifestyle change. They were expecting a newborn, so they chose to give up the cats. 3 dogs for aggression. 3 cats unable to care for. 3 dogs injured. 2 dogs were old, a euthanasia request. 2 cats, 1 bit the toddler, and they also, owner released 4 kittens with that litter, that mama cat. 1 dog, owner could not keep in the yard. 1 cat sick, euthanasia request. 1 dog was sick, a euthanasia request. And 1 cat, the owner was moving out of state, and they determined that it would be too stressful for the cat to travel that far in a carrier. And 1 the landlord does not allow on their property. Next is our 14 reasons that we were unable to field RTO in the field, and coincidentally, all of them were because there was no contact at home or at the residence, which is a good thing, kind of a good thing. That means that every one of those 14 animals was identifiable either by a microchip or a tag. So it's a bad thing that we weren't able to field RTO them, but it's a good thing at least that they had some sort of identification. And here are the last 2 measures of my peak performance that aren't included in any slide. Number 3 is a 10% reduction of stray animal bite responses. So for this month, for year to date, we have a 29.4% increase in stray animal bites. As you can see from my report, we've had 95 for this year, and we had 67 last year. Number 4 is a 10%, our goal is 10% reduction in owner-victim bites. Again, we're at a 0.08, which is really close, but we still haven't met our mark of 10%. We had 68 reported owner-victim bites compared to last year at this time at 62. So our total calls for the month, we're at 1,220. Bringing us to a grand total for the year at 9,613. Highlights for the month. We had no presentations this month, however, we had 175 hours of training that went directly to the ACOs for their continuing education. The majority of that was NACA training. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Gino. Are there any questions? Councilor Flores?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Officer Jimenez. So the 175 hours of training, how many officers participated over a period of how long?
Chairman, Councilor Flores, that would be all 8 of them. And I try to schedule it so that I still have coverage out in the field. So it could be anywhere from 2 hours to 5 hours to their whole shift would be sitting at the office doing that training.
And but over a period of how many weeks or months?
That was the entire month,
Oh, that's a lot of time.
yes.
Yeah, good.
We really, really strive on getting them as much training as we can.
Right.
And that's also not just NACA training, that could be any kind of PD training that's required, tourniquet training, de-escalation training, and then also the required city training, like your FMLA, FLSA, those types of training that were required by the city.
Good. And then on the, in the situation where the owner wasn't able to keep the puppies or cats.
Let me go
page
back to
6,
that
okay.
slide.
Was it cats? Okay. Oh, I thought, well, whatever. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
cats.
The cat, yeah.
Uh,
for
The cat litter.
Yes.
Do you recommend, was the litter born to the owner's cat, or was it, I mean, I don't want to assume that it was necessarily so was the owner of the cat who gave birth to all those kittens, do you do any education, or do you encourage them to have them spayed or anything like that?
Absolutely. However, in this case, because they bit the toddler, we at least had to take the bite cat, and at that time, it was the mama cat. We can't separate the mama from the kittens, so we have to take them all. And then consequently, there was another adult cat that they chose to give up as well.
Oh, so they gave up the entire kitten,
Yes, ma'am.
literally kitten caboodle. Yeah, okay. And then, I know. And then, I think, let me see, on page 2, maybe it was,
This one?
so, you know, maybe this is yeah, you had 504 reported stray animals for August, but there's no reason, is that different than any other August? I'm wondering if they're not getting attention, they're hungry, it's hot, they're running off. They were strays and you weren't able to return any of them?
Yes, ma'am, we were able to return the 43.
43 out of
Yes.
504, or were they reoccurring, maybe the same dog getting out all the time?
It's hard to say if they're reoccurring because we don't keep that data.
Oh, okay.
So the 504 is the total number of stray calls.
Calls,
So that's the cumulative number.
right.
And then I break it down into each subsection, if you will.
And then do you have repeat offenders, for lack of a better word?
We absolutely do.
And it's not the animal, it's the owner who's a repeat offender.
Absolutely, and you're correct on that. We do, but unfortunately, I don't keep that data.
Okay.
And it would be really hard to say that they're a repeat offender because of the movement of people in the city. So 1 month they live here, 6 months later they live here, 8 months later they live here. So yes, we could have that beginning offender at this address. They move over here, they offend again, or they violate the ordinance again. I shouldn't say offend. They violate the ordinance again at this address, and then they move, and we still have the same circumstance.
Right.
So it's
And-
kind of hard to pinpoint it
right.
to that
It's-
address.
It's hard to track the individual, because they may have
Yes.
the same name, right?
Yes.
I mean, too. Okay, thank
Absolutely.
you very much, Officer Jimenez. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. Any last thoughts, questions? All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Supervisor Jimenez.
You are welcome.
All right, then we'll move on to shelter statistics and activities with Mr. Clint Thacker.
If I could get out of this. Can you help me? Thank you.
Morning, Board. Clint Thacker, Executive Director, Animal Service Center, Mesilla Valley. I'd like to also, a few days ago, give a little shout out to Mayor Pro Tem. Happy birthday. A couple days ago, so glad you're here with us. Let's see. So our numbers for August were very high. Well, you're going to see as we go through this. The current population at the center, 450. And again, we're keeping that number low because of our quality of care. And you're going to see that throughout this, that there was a lot of things, numbers that went high in order to keep that number low. So our current intake, 945 animals came into the center just in August. 581 dogs, 358 cats. Our intake methods, of course, animal control, they are always going to be our highest, 52.6%. The next one, and they're usually right in there, is owner surrender with 21.5%, and strays by public is at 21%. So those always come in just really super close together. Owner surrender continues to be a problem, an issue. We continue to, our strategic plan, we're developing calls for farming, which we do to a point, food banks and other resources to help with it. So that is a continual issue that we're looking at. August returns, so that means animals that came back to us, like they adopted and they brought them back. We had a total, it says here 16, but that doesn't add up to the 5 that are on here. So lifestyles, other pets, so just four dogs, 1 cat. Our diverted intake holds steady right where it was last month and close to where it was the month before that. So August we ended with 189. For those watching or listening for the first time, that number is a number that somebody like a stray found by the public comes in, and the individual who found it is willing to hold on to the animal, take it for a walk, post signs. So that's a diverted intake. If it's an owned animal bringing in, our front office will say, why is it you need to? Oh, I can't afford food. Okay, well, if we give you a little bit of food, can you hold on to it, type of thing. So that's what we continue to do. I don't want to get my dog, or I have to get my dog sterilized. Well, we can help you with that. That kind of thing that diverts the animal from coming into the center. So 189 there. Of course, if the person says, I just don't want it, if you guys don't take it, I'm just going to let it go, then of course we take it. We don't have to divert it first. This is a hard slide to read for me, especially for the euthanasia. And we'll just jump right down there. 349 animals were euthanized in the month of August. That equals almost 37% of all that 945 that we saw was euthanized. Adoptions were the next highest at 23.3%. Rescued, the rescue organizations are so full right now, but they help us every single month, and we're so grateful for them. They saved 155 lives, so that's 16.4% of that outcome. So we ended with a live release rate of 61.5, and the live release rate again is the percentage of animals that came in left alive, so that's 61.5%. This is our transfers or our rescues. Again, special thank you to those that they do so much for us. So the total there, 158. APA local here that does so much for us. Bernalillo County Animal Care, they are the directors, a friend of mine. They came and did a tour of our center. They said, well, we need cats. And said, well, we can connect the dots. So we brought them to 13 cats. So shout out special to them. We do that Front Range Freedom Rescue. That's the one where we meet in, I believe it's Raton, New Mexico. So they do a lot for us as well. As you can see, Big Mutt Network, they're the same. That's a big one too at 25. So special thanks to all of those that work so hard for us. This is our euthanasia reason in August. The number 1 reason was space medical for dogs. These are animals that if we had the space, we would usually not euthanize them. We would hold on to them, and we would see if they respond to treatment. You can see the number 1 reason. for cats is feral with a close behind of non-treatment for respiratory signs. Again, if we had room, those says non-treatment, we would have held on to those, been able to treat them, but since we are so full, we had to make space for the animals that are continually coming in. With 900, I think it was 945, 49 animals, space needs to be made every single day. Our surgeries, amazing job of what they do, 404 surgeries. I know that number seems a little low when you look at it, excuse me, across the board. However, it is amazing for what they do with what they have. I know that when I say we have, I believe, 5 contracted veterinarians, that it's like, oh, that's great, fantastic. Well, they only do 1 or 2 days a month. So just keep that in mind. It's, we do have several of them, but it's not a full-time. Dr. Haddon usually picks up everything else in there, and that's the reason why our lower quality of care is because when the veterinarian's tied up doing surgeries, not always available to say who can come and who can go as far as for treatments. So, but she does an amazing job, and so does her team. Our volunteers did an amazing 659 hours. A lot of that is the dog walking team. They walked every single available dog in the center. So they got out, had a lot of fun, jumped around, and were exhausted for that day. When the new center is built, we're gonna be utilizing volunteers to do play yards or play groups. So dogs are gonna be able to get out. 15-minute play group is equivalent to a 30-minute walk, because the brain stimulation is so much more when you're playing in a pack mentality. So they get a lot more out of those play groups. So we're looking forward to that part being completed, and there's trainings that we go to be able to get them those play groups started. Our visitors, again, went down just a little bit for 1,600 for the center. Our website views went down just a touch, 38,000, but holding steady at that higher amount. And then Facebook views shot up astronomically up to 18,900, almost 1,900. So when I went back and looked through Facebook about why that big jump in August, we had National Dog Day. That had over 500 shares, not views, but shares. So that was that was a lot. We had on August 9th, we also posted that we were out of space, and we did a graphic that showed our capacity, or what we wanted to keep our capacity at, and that was shared over 500 times as well. We were able to get some traction out of that. It was also, the whole month of August was Clear the Shelter. That's a very popular one. Our lobby is usually full. You know, the start of that one, and this was no different. So we had Clear the Shelter the entire month of August. That's a big one with Telemundo comes out. We do interviews. I do videos throughout. But I think the biggest one, and this is kind of tongue-in-cheek, but still very true, is we did a celebration for our lobby cat, Sir Henry. It was his birthday, and he got over 2.4 thousand views. To put that in perspective, I did a Clear the Shelter video and I got 300 views. Sir Henry got 2.4 thousand. So we appreciate all the attention Henry gives us because that's positive for the shelter, positive for the center, so we're able to see that. And Shiloh and Angel are our animals or pets of the week, available for adoption, and I can entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Clint. Are there any questions on the presentation? Perfect. Commissioner Sheldon on this.
I actually do have a question. Can you go back to the slide on the organizations that take dogs from the shelter? I just have a question. I don't know why I thought about it just now, but are we actively reaching out to these individuals, or are these individuals reaching out to us for animals?
So it's both.
It's both.
If we have an animal that's specific, like you'll see here, Arizona Border Collie Rescue. It's like the 5th one down. If we have a collie, we're going to notify them and say, hey, we have a dog that looks like a collie, acts like a collie. Do you want this? And they'll say yes or no. A lot of times what happens is we'll post something on Facebook. We have a special Facebook rescue page. That's a private page that any of these can be on. And we'll post an animal that needs to be rescued. And then they'll tag each other, or so that's kind of our way of reaching out. Or somebody will see something and they'll contact us. But big ones like Action Program for Animals, they're here locally, they'll just come and they'll see what we have. So it's both.
What's the other on Boulder Valley?
The Humane Society of Boulder Valley, I'm not sure, but it's probably a varmint of some type, like a rat or a lizard maybe. Or do you know what it was, Michelle? It was not a dog and a cat. You can cross those two out.
Okay, we'll take it. Thank you.
Speaking of birds, did you find a home for the rooster?
Yes.
I thought I saw that post on the Facebook page.
Yes, we did. Our roosters and chickens usually move pretty quickly. Let's just say that yes, we did.
Okay. I think it's so easy to always assume cats and dogs, and then like you said, it's just like there's so the variety of animals that end up at the Animal Service Center is just amazing. I know, when we had the one update from when we get the morning updates about the snake that was loose in the center, that one I had to take a second look and just like I remember I called you and asked you, is this real? Because it's not something you always see on an update. So
Yes, correct.
I was going to ask, and I don't know, maybe I'm way off here, but when we go back, I know we look 2 years back on our data, but when we look and think at like 2019 and before the pandemic, it sure seemed like the live release rate was significantly higher.
Yes.
And I know, like I said, I know we had the pandemic in between then. I know there's some other factors, but is there anything that sticks out that has changed? Like I said, I know where we're at, and I understand, what's going on and why it's happening. But I'm just wondering, is there anything that sticks out? Because I just was thinking, God, we used to be in the 80s, or at least close to the 80s, and close, yeah. And so I don't know what. From the experience, I said, going back that far, what's changed?
Yeah, excellent question, and we've been looking at that data as well. So there's two biggest things on that. One is the amount of rescues that were going out. Before the pandemic, we were having 2,000 year rescues. You look at our data and our annual reports. It was, in 2018, I think it was 3,000, over 3,000 animals went out to rescues. And those were significant bump ups for our live release rate. So those were true outcomes. So rescue has gone way down. You can look and see just in the screen that the ones on there from 21 to 22. You're at 26%, 21%, and then 16. This year has been a very hard year for rescues. The other one is our quality of care. If you remember, we've had our population at times around 600 animals in the center. And so when you have that, your live release rate is higher, but the monetary funds and the time spent with the animals is astronomical because they're more stressed. There's a lot more stress on employees because we have animals literally in crates on top of each other in the hallway, in the kennels. And we decided, we being the management team, we decided we're not going to do that this year. We are not going to cause that added stress to the animals, to the individuals that have to clean them, nor to the management, because it's a huge stress on us as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are the two biggest factors for that.
Thank you. And like I said, I appreciate you pointing it out. And like I said, it was just in my mind when I see the large number of euthanasias and just trying to understand, because I know, like I said, that was the one thing that went through my mind is, God, we were always higher in our numbers, so I appreciate the clarity on that.
You're going to see an increase as we go up into the colder months. Remember several years in a row, January, February, before pre-pandemic, we were in the 90s. And we did press releases, saying and such, that we qualified as no kill on those days. So with the time of year, August, it's the summer, man, it's a hard month. We always go up in the
Yeah.
summer.
No, I understand. Okay. Thank you, Clint. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
I do want to let the board know that on 10/15, so October 15th, Sunday, we have our next vaccine clinic drive-through.
Oh, thank you.
So it's going to be a huge event, always is, 9 to 2, Field of Dreams. And then also a new thing that we're doing is reaching out into the far areas of the county. We're going to be going on Saturday, September 30th, we're going out to Hatch and doing adoptions. So our thing is that if we can't get them to come to us, we'll try sending a few animals out to them. It's not a huge, take the trailer and the big trucks and all this. It's like 4 to 5 animals. We go out there, and we're 1 or 2 employees, so it's not heavy burden on us. And let's just see. That's kind of the point we're at. We're trying to do everything we can to save these animals' lives.
No, I appreciate it, and I think, getting out in the various other parts of the county, hopefully, I'd be curious to see what kind of reaction you get to that, but I think it's important that you're reaching out into the outside of the city, so hopefully you'll get some support, hopefully you'll get some good responses from the community out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Clint, for your presentation. When someone looks to adopt an animal, or say you're going out to Hatch, do you require or ask or suggest that they take a course in animal care and animal responsibility? And then the follow-up question to that is, how many returns, or do you get any returns on those adoption efforts that you do?
All right,
Thank
so
you.
to answer the first one is no, we don't require anything. What we do though is if anybody brings an animal back to us and the return is for behavior issues, we have the rough to ready program, we call it. So it's one of the diverted intakes that we do is we say, are you willing to do 1 to 2 training sessions, behavior training sessions with our professional that we've teamed with? And if they say no, absolutely, I don't want the dog, then we take it. But if they say, yeah, sure, I'd like to do that, then we set them up with a professional dog trainer, and they'll be able to do 1 to 2 sessions with them, show them how to do it, or maybe the dog's going to the bathroom in the house. They'll set them up on a successful path. Maybe the dog's jumping up. Well, they'll show them how to do those things. But no, we do not require them to have any training beforehand.
Do you ask them whether they've ever owned a cat or a dog, the animal that you're setting up for adoption when you go out or when they come into the center? Do you ask whether they've ever been a pet owner in the past, even if it's a gerbil or a whatever, those little what my kids had, I don't know, those smelly little things that look like rats. They just adored them.
I was going to say kids, but that's not right.
Well, oh, excuse me, it was my kids, that's right. No, so do you do any of that, Clint? Or
We have a conversation.
Oh,
We have a conversation with them, and that's kind of one of the questions that we do is we talk about, basically, how do you plan on caring for this animal? And with that question, we're asking, have you ever owned an animal? So with that answer, we would get, yeah, I know what to do. You get the litter, we have to place it in an open place. And so that conversation tells us a lot. Now, we have a couple times, if somebody is like in an apartment and they want a Great Dane, we're like, no, this isn't a good mix. Are you aware of some of the challenges that you're facing? Or can you tell me some of the challenges that you're going to have with this huge dog in 600 square feet? So, or if they already have 4 cats and so we talk to them about those things. But if an individual says, if they're adamant that I can make it work and they have good things, good reasons, or a good plan set, then we're like, let's give it a try. Because here's why. Even if that animal comes back, we still get information on that animal. So if it is a Great Dane and they're adamant and they have a plan, then we'll say, okay, great. Or we'll say, okay, great. but then the landlord kicks them back and says, no, you can't do this. We know how the animal walks on a leash. We'll know how the animal settles down at night. We'll know. So all the information that we get on that animal up to the point of return is so valuable, because then we can pass that on to other individuals. So we don't view returns as a failure. We view it as an information period that we can get. As long as we're capturing that information on the return, we see it's only positive for the animal.
Good work. Thank you, Clint.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. All right, thank you, Clint.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to committee reports, starting with the Finance Committee. Mrs. Bencomo.
Thank you so much, Chair. Yes, the Finance Committee met last Thursday, September 21st, and reviewed the financials through August of this fiscal year. There were no concerns. The revenues for the center are running a little bit ahead of schedule, of course, because the city and county provide 22% of the budgeted revenues up front to the center. So that's proceeding as intended and expected. And then the operating expenditures were below the budget target for the month, which is about 17% of the annual budget. So there were no, in the aggregate, no expenditures from the center that were over the intended budget target for that month. So no concerns at this point. We will receive the full financial report at next month's board meeting so that we can review the first quarter results. And so we'll have that presentation here next month.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions, board? All right, thank you, Ms. Bencomo. All right, then we're on to the Executive Committee. So Clint and I had met on the morning of September 12th, and we ended up, I think, Mayor Pro Tem was there. It was a pretty quiet, I think, meeting in terms of I think we just discussed the upcoming, this meeting, the agenda. We talked about the upcoming work session that we had last week. But really, I think the only concern that was brought up was really around how I think we're just getting the board is having communications from our various managements and constituent teams with some of the work that's been going on with the ordinances, and trying to make sure we're getting updates. And so that's one of the things that we discussed a little bit, and trying to figure out how we can work on getting the updates, because I think one of the things that we've had, we're hearing some things from the constituents, but I think as I'd say even as commissioner or as the electeds on the board, we haven't gotten much updates, because I know the process is in works for any updated animal ordinances. And so, I'm sorry, Councilor Flores. Correct. So the animal ordinances for both the city and the county are both being worked on together. And so that way we can have some updates. And I know we've been reached out to by constituents, I guess they're already being alerted or around some changes that are coming, but I haven't been able to have the discussions. And so I think that was really the only other item that came up in the discussion. But I don't know, Mayor Pro Tem, if I think that covers everything, if you recall. So well, that's it from the Executive Committee. All right, the Facilities Committee.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
We met and spoke of the various things that are happening specific to facilities. Things changed so drastically in Clint. I'm going to ask you to come up and give an update. We did receive an update at council meeting Monday about sort of what's been left in terms of the Animal Services Center and receiving sort of the supplies necessary to move that, to completion. And David Cedillo spoke of some of the crates and different things that we were waiting for. He mentioned October, I believe, but Clint, do you have some more update.
I do, yes, yes, Mayor Pro Tem. We being the ASCMV was able to move forward on the cement work that we discussed with the get acquainted areas. So the drains, as we speak, the drains are being installed, connected to the main lines, and that work is ongoing. I talked to the Jane's Construction yesterday, and he said their goal is to be done by the end of October. But they have, I want to say until November 15th is what the contract says, but they're in line to be done by mid to end of October. So we're excited about that. And that is for all the get acquainted yards to be cemented, fences installed, and then the fences for the play yards will now finally go all the way up, and then the crusher fine rock will be spread out. Just so you're aware, if you remember, we went back and forth quite a bit on designs for the get acquainted yard. My hope was to cement the entire place, but their funds were not available, so we had to do just the rectangles, and then crusher fines will go around it, with the hopes that in coming years we'll be able to cement the entire thing. I know that the county has offered for assistance in the cementing to help cut some costs, so maybe that's a future we can look into to complete that goal, to have it all done. The wireless access continues to, well, they've ordered the products, but everything's on back order. And so we're waiting on that. If I remember right, the wiring has been done. We're just waiting for the equipment for that. So once those come, it's a 1 to 2 week installation period. Just looking through my notes, there continues to be a key card problem. You know, when the key card you use to swipe in to get in, they can't find a card that we can use that will work at the old center and the new center. They believe they have one, but they're waiting on a PO number and that approval process to get that started. And I can request an update that for the next facility committee meeting. The puppy cages, they have them installed in 2 of the dog runs, so we're excited about that. They're beautiful. They're stainless steel and glass on the visitor side, and then on the staff side, that's a great, that you can, just a regular cage front that you can open. So we're excited for those. We have no completion date for if you remember, the cat cages that are installed were the wrong height. We are purchasing those through a grant at a significantly discounted amount. So we'll be taking those. But the new ones, they are under production, we're told by the general contractor, but there's no completion date as of yet or install. Is there anything else that I may have left out? Yeah. Okay.
So maybe one question. Any idea when we can move everybody in and all the animals and have an open house or ribbon cutting?
I would love to say November 1st. I mean, that might be cutting it a little close as far as how the cement goes. One thing I don't want to do is do an announcement and then have to cancel it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we're pretty safe to say, you know, December 1st, something like that. So that will allow us to get our animals in, get anything that we may need installed, or get things, you know, as you move into, there's always new procedures, new things you have to figure out. Also, yesterday we got our dishwashers finally not ordered, but delivered. So now we have to get a licensed plumber and electrician to install them, or it voids the warranty. Even though it's a simple put on a table and plug it in, we still need to have that done. So, but other than that, I'm hoping December
Okay.
that we can do it.
Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Clint. All right. Okay. So next on our agenda, we don't have anything under discussion items, so we'll move on to action items, which would be 7A, Resolution 2023-12, to carry forward grant funds and adjust the fiscal year 2024 budget. If I can get a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-12.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez, a second by Councilor Flores. All right.
Thank you. Take all the applause I can get. Thank you. Right.
And sorry, for this one, this one would be first to carry the grant funds forward.
Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry, Clint. I was moving to mine.
Okay, no problem. If you want to
Apologize.
hang on there so you don't have to
It's all right.
come all the way up.
Can launch that.
Okay.
That was weird you gotta do it, but I was like,
No.
yeah, you bet. So on this one, this is just basic housekeeping. You see from the Exhibit A that you have there, we're moving the grant funds over that we did not use from the previous year, and we're moving them over into this year for utilization. Pretty basic stuff.
Okay, are there any questions? Seems straightforward. All right, we can get a roll call.
Board Member Weir?
Yes.
Board Member Shelo Hernandez?
Yes.
Board Member Gandara?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes. I don't know, Ms. Bencomo, I don't know if you want to register a vote with the, on the microphones down there as well. Well, with, she is, but with.
But you don't have a
got it.
quorum
I just didn't know
anymore.
with the city not having the full complement
Oh, no.
of their votes, I didn't know if their vote
Oh.
counted. So. We have the quorum, so we're good. I just wasn't sure. Okay, thank you. All right, okay, so now we'll get on to Resolution 2023-13, a resolution to recommend a new joint powers agreement between the City of Las Cruces and the County of Doña Ana. If I can get a motion and a second for approval.
So move, Gandara.
All right, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara,
Second.
second by Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez. All right. Mrs. Bencomo.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll restart this one again. So appreciate the time to review a proposed JPA and MOU for the Animal Service Center. Just a little bit of background. As you all know, the current GPA was established in 2012. The review of the JPA, the current JPA with the intent to update it, began in early 2022. And we have discussed proposed changes both at the August 24th board meeting and also at the special work session on September 21st. Some of the highlights of changes in the JPA, of course, the big one is the structure, removing the fiscal agent responsibilities from the JPA in order to create a new memorandum of understanding that would encompass that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a sec here. Also, we have some proposed changes to board membership, the composition of the board, which we'll go into in more detail later on. The term of the board, two-year terms are proposed for board members, and the removal of board members. Previously in the JPA, there were different stipulations for what might constitute removal of the board members from the county versus the city, and we've really just consolidated that into one statement that applies to all board members. There's some language clarification in the JPA, for example, and that's throughout, but for example, in just defining what happens with the funds that are not spent in a given fiscal year and how they roll over into the reserve for the next year. Other changes include meetings. Meetings are now proposed to be held each quarter versus each month. And there's a new threshold for the percentage of meetings that the board members have to attend. Otherwise, there could be removal from the board. The JPA also includes a statement now about the duties of the center to just specify what the center will be providing to the community. And also language was added to specify periodic review and renewal of the JPA. The newly created Memorandum of Understanding really goes into more detail about what services will be provided by the city in terms of financial services, human resources, IT risk, and fleet. It also outlines the duties of the center, and we're going to go into both of these here in just a little bit. But one important specification in the MOA is that the center will adopt certain city policies, for example, cash handling, travel, P-card, risk management policies, et cetera. And then also that the compensation for the fiscal agent services will be based upon a cost allocation study rather than a fixed amount that increases with inflation every year, which is what was in the last JPA. And this allows for us to, as the center, to define what services are needed for the fiscal agent, to define what services can be provided, to come to agreement upon that, and then the cost is based on those services that will be provided very specifically. So some of the things in the MOU that I wanted to just call your attention to, because they will be new, is that in this MOU, we have included risk management services to the Animal Service Center, specifically for drug testing. That includes random drug testing, pre-employment. It requires the adoption of a policy for this, and I believe the center is going to be adopting the city's risk management policy. Is that correct, Clint? Yes. We've also specified fleet services. That wasn't addressed in the last JPA, but fleet definitely does the procurement of vehicles for the Animal Services Center, and then obviously repair and maintenance of the vehicles, so that's just specified in the MOU. IT services were not specified in the last JPA, but IT does a lot of work for the Animal Services Center. Procurement of computer systems, maintenance of such, network support, phones, licensing. So all of that is specified in this new MOU as well. And then another new program that's added to the MOU under Human Resources Services is the addition of a tuition reimbursement program that was requested by the director of the center and agreed upon by HR. There is a proposed amendment to the MOU that I just want to call your attention to. This is proposed by our city auditor. So our city auditor, Viola Perea, periodically reviews the city's compliance to policies such as cash handling, travel, P-cards, et cetera. When she is pulling documents in order to do those audits, those random audits, there may be transactions included in there that belong to the Animal Service Center. In that case, because they have also adopted the same policies, we want to be able to conduct the audit of the center at the same time as we do the city to make sure we're all in compliance with the policies. So the language that is requested to be added to the MOU is that the city shall be the fiscal agent, let me go to this section. Sorry about that. That's the JPA. In section 2, that's the duties of the city. F, that we would add wording, as the fiscal agent, the city reserves the right to audit center activities related to city policies adopted by the center. So that's some proposed language that we'd like to discuss today. For the center responsibilities, I mentioned we've also outlined the duties of in quite a bit of detail. so that we all understand the different roles and responsibilities between the center and the fiscal agent. For example, and these are just a few highlights, we've specified that the center is responsible for all management of their budget. They'll comply with the deadlines laid out for reporting and development of the budget, and also use the city's enterprise resource planning system in order to complete budget development and manage the budget. The center will be responsible for the collection and depositing of receivables. This is something that's already the case, but again, it's just stipulated in the MOU. And that the center will pay for access to the city's training system in order to be able to comply with various requirements that are related to city policies that are adopted by the center. And then there's a corollary to the proposed amendment of language for the responsibilities of the center related to the audit. And that language would be in section, let's see, the duties of the center's item U would be added to just indicate that the center would cooperate with any city audits of activities related to city policies adopted by the center. So that would be the other amendment that's proposed by our city auditor. And I'm going to speak about this a little bit more, but in going through the documents, the MOU and the JPA are extensive. The JPA was edited extensively. There were quite a few items that changed numbering or lettering. In review with Councilor Flores, we found a few things that needed to be corrected in terms of this should be number 3, not number 2. This should be item F, not item G. And so those are administrative changes that I'm already going through the documents to update, just to let you know. So there will be some numbering and lettering changes related to those corrections. So one thing we have discussed previously is the composition of the board membership in the JPA. On the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see the current JPA composition of the board. There are 6 voting members, 3 city elected officials or staff, 3 county elected officials or staff, and 2 ex officio members. That's the city manager, the county manager, or their designees. So that's the current composition of the board. In the JPA that you have before you, there's a proposal for 8 voting members, and the composition would be 1 elected official from both the city and the county, the city manager and the county manager, who would become voting members of the board, and then 2 members of the public appointed by the city and 2 appointed by the county. At the last work session, we also discussed some other potential options for the board, which I've laid out for you here on the right-hand side of your screen. This option retains 8 voting members, 2 elected officials, each from the city and county, 2 members of the public appointed by the city, 2 by the county, and then the city manager and county manager remain ex officio members. And there's also an option that retains the 8 voting members, 2 elected officials from the city and the county each, and then the city manager and the county manager become voting members, and then 1 member of the public appointed by the city and 1 by the county. So those are some of the options that we discussed at the last work session. As far as next steps and where we are today, of course, we have the ability to make amendments to either the JPA or the MOU or both. I've pointed out that there could be potentially an amendment related to the board membership. There could be amendment related to the right to audit language that I mentioned for the MOU specifically. If those amendments, if we undertake those amendments and they pass, then of course the next step would be the board approval, then would go to city and county for approval, and then state approval for the JPA. And just one clarification, related to county approval, the county approval would only be for the JPA. The MOU is an agreement between the center and the city as fiscal agent. So with that, I'll be happy to stand for any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mrs. Bencomo. Councilor Flores, we'll start
Thank
with you and then go to Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Bencomo. So the MOU is being reviewed by the parties' respective attorneys?
The MOU has already been, the draft MOU has already been reviewed by the city attorney. And Clint, the ASCMV attorney?
I don't think so. It has not been reviewed by the attorney for the center. However, most everything in there, probably 90%, are things that we are already doing. We're just getting it on paper and getting it done. So I don't see the need to send it to him, but if you would like to, I can add that in as well.
I think you should.
Okay.
And, I mean, it's not my directive, it's a personal, well, as a board member, I
Okay.
would say you'd be in a much safer position, Clint, to have an attorney review it, because then you can blame the attorneys. 'Cause,
Okay.
you know, we get blamed for everything.
All right, will do. Thank you.
Honestly, seriously, you'd be protecting yourself and the center from any potential liability should.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can get that to him right now.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I have a question about, there were, dang, I wrote it down, where is it? Well, I'll look for it and maybe follow up later. Thank you, Mr. Chair, thank you, Ms. Bencomo.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Thank you. Yes, I had a question on slide 9. I like this option better than the first option. I wanted to ask in terms of selection for the respected county and city public appointees. What sort of process by which would folks go through, and then the kind of training that they would get specific to the animal? You know, there's a lot that it's taken me years and years to figure this out, and I still don't grasp it completely. So really concerned about that particularly. And all of us have city and county appointees. I just want to make sure that we're not throwing these folks to the fire, that there's going to be a designated process and training.
Clint Thacker, Executive Director. So when we put this in there, I do remember Mr. Macias was saying that the city appointed and the county appointed, they would follow their own, so the city would follow their own methods of appointing, selecting, and following, and getting that individual appointed there, and the county would follow their own procedures for doing it, for vetting the individual. And then as far as training, the individual would be sitting with me, and I could present them with the same pamphlet I presented all of you, not pamphlet, but information packet that talks about the board, what it is. I can answer any questions. And also the hope is that these individuals would already be fluent in a lot of the terminology and the things that we use and talk about in the animal industry, in the animal world. So we have some great people that are here in the community that could easily fill that role. So that was a line of thinking behind this drive to get a public person on there.
Yeah, and particularly in the budget area, Clint, it's not a large budget, but it's a budget nevertheless that they would have to be responsible for. That composition is new, right? And I'm deeply concerned with the option 1, particularly for that reason. You know, to have sort of the other way feels concerning to me, particularly that we'll be moving in that direction hopefully by next January, I'm assuming, or what do you think, Barbara? I'm looking at, how long do they take, DFA take to
That's a
It's a
good
good question.
yes.
Not that you have any power or control over it, but what is your thoughts
And they have
around
had the
timing?
changing of the guard this year too. They have
Yes,
quite
there's a lot
quite a
of
few new
movement.
staff members. So I
Yes.
couldn't say, it really, initially we thought that we would bring the document to the board here in September, take it to the city and county in October, and then hopefully get it to DFA right after the
Sure.
October resolution. So January would be a nice time to be able
It
to
would.
hope for, but I can't really say how long
Yeah.
that process would take.
Yeah, there's a lot of movement this year. Hopefully, it lands the way we all want it to. But that's a big if. And I'm concerned about the terms, the 2-year terms. It just feels 2-year terms for members.
So it's two.
Oh, 2-year. I
2-year
misunderstood.
terms.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
I'm good.
the opportunity to clarify. So the language in the JPA stipulates 2-year terms, so a total of 4 years on the board.
Which I think is important. Continuity is important. Okay, all right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I guess the only question and comment, I know this came up during the work session, was around the board having public members on the board with the budget. And I guess, my question being is that while I understand, like I said, they're the options, these were the options that were suggested because of the work session. I guess I just don't have, I guess when we talk on the budget, I don't understand, because the budget is approved by city council and by the county commission. Not so much specifically, we authorize or approve the contributions to the Animal Service Center. Clint works on presenting the budget to the board for approval. I guess I don't have as much of a concern, or I don't understand the concern of having the public, especially when we still have members of each body on the board with doing. I guess my question is what's the concern having 2 members of the public
It's
versus
not-
1?
That isn't. I don't
Oh,
have
okay, I
a
thought-
problem with that. What I have a problem with was the numbers of elected officials versus what we have now. That's my problem, because of the fact that I know how it's gone in the past budget. We all were a part of it and how long it took, even with the representatives from the county and the city. Now you're reducing that to 1, and I find it difficult to you're right, the city and county, but that one individual is having to come and speak to council and the county specifically about all the needs. And you know how it goes, it doesn't happen as easily. And I feel like if it's a compromise to go from what we have now to 1 each is a drastic change, and one that I don't think is the right move at this point. I think a compromise would be this one here. It's still pretty drastic, but at least it keeps up with sort of, you're eliminating one of us, say, for example, from both the city and the county. I feel that's a nice enough. And then bringing public, I'm all for bringing the public in. I think that's a really important aspect and something that we've never done and something that I think we've been talking about for some time. That's not at all my concern. It's about how drastic the change is. And then what happens during budget season, I know, and we have a very formal budget season that we're beginning now to speak to and to leave it to one individual, depending on who that one individual, and knowing that we have elections, it could not be any of us on this, with the exception of Councilor Flores, to carry that burden over. And so I'm just concerned with the composition in terms of the number of elected officials. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I think when you mentioned the budget, that was the piece that I know, as Councilor Flores had previously mentioned in the work session. That's why I was just wanting to get a better understanding. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
And we didn't talk, I haven't talked.
No, we haven't, we've been so busy, we can't even chismear about anything. Oh, por nada. But, Ms. De Leon, you have, oh, I'm sorry, did you recognize me?
Oh, please, Councilor Flores.
I'm so sorry. Duh. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you, Ms. De Leon. we have, we have two options on the JPA composition, board composition.
So I captured two options based on the discussion at the
That we
last
had last
work
week.
session. That's correct. So here was the original proposed board membership that you have in your JPA draft document. And then we had two options that I captured from the discussion.
Okay, I think my understanding, Ms. DeLeon, was that the city manager and county manager, or their designees at given times throughout, would be voting members. And I like the composition on page 8, on slide 8. I like the 2 elected officials, 2 from each body. And
So the reason
yeah,
that this one has the 2 ex officio members is because of the retention of the 8 total voting members on the board. And this one, again, retains the 8 voting members, but allows the city manager, county manager to be voting members. So that was the difference between
wait a minute,
the
so,
2 options.
I'm sorry, so there's 8 voting members for each option?
That's correct. There's 8.
Why is 8 magical? I mean, what's so magical about 8?
I think we discussed this briefly at the work session.
Well,
and
let's beat the dead horse. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the Animal Service Center. Ooh. Terrible expression. But can we beat it to the ground? I mean, I don't know. Has something not worked with having the city manager designee or the county manager designee? Yeah, okay, okay, forget it, strike that. I think the option two is acceptable to me. By looking at it again, it answered my question. Thank you, Ms. DeLeon. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. And Mrs. Bencomo, I just have, on option 2, well, we still have the ex officio members. Is there even a need for the ex officio because they're now on the board? You have the city and county manager or designees. Is it just adding just to have additional?
So Chair Sanchez, on option 2, we do not have any ex officio members.
Okay, I just, like I said, I see it on the slide, and that's a.
On the left-hand side as
Yeah,
the
yeah.
current.
Oh.
Yep, that's okay.
Okay.
The left-hand side is the current structure, and the right-hand side is one of the options.
Got it, okay. That was
For
throwing
a
me off. I
change.
apologize. Thank you for the
No, I
clarification.
appreciate it.
Oh, and Mr. Chair.
Councilor Flores, please.
Thank you, please. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, Ms. Bencomo, and I'm glad our city clerk is here. We don't have our county clerk here. But insofar as the board appointments, she's happy she's back from vacation. Yeah, happy. Yeah, won't last long though. Okay. Forever the optimist, right? So what about, oh gosh, what did I start to say? You made me forget, it's your fault. The board membership and so it'll be written in our JPA how a board member will be removed due to excessive absences, that sort of stuff. And then what's the procedure for that? I know that for our city boards, city-only boards, we have it written in our charter that removal is automatic. And that's another issue, but that's for another day, another time. But it doesn't say anything about the process, or does it?
So, yes, there is some information in the JPA related to the potential
It's-
removal of a board member. And the way the language reads is that attendance is required for all board meetings. A member may be removed by a majority board vote for failure to attend more than 50% of the regular meetings in any 12-month period.
Right, and then the new JPA also sets forth only 4 meetings, quarterly meetings throughout the year. So a person can only miss 2 of those meetings
In any 12-month
in
period.
any 12-month period. Oh, in any 12-month period. So, wow. So, but the word is that's permissive. So if someone belly aches about why they're absent all the time, maybe they won't be removed.
By a
And then-
majority of the board.
By majority of the board. Yeah, wow. That, I think the 4 meetings, I think it's probably doable. And I wasn't, well, I just, you know, we meet once a month, and some of our meetings go to up until noon. And I'm just wondering whether 4 meetings a year is sufficient. That's all. I mean, in terms of everything that Clint reports, everything that's going on with the center, everything that's going on with our ACOs and everything like that. Where did that magical number come from? The 4.
I believe that there was some discussion about the overall number of meetings that certainly elected officials had in a given period of time. I know that we have moved our financial reports to a quarterly basis because on a month-by-month basis, it's somewhat less meaningful to review those over that time period, but definitely at the quarter is reasonable and I think prudent. And so I think there was just more, guidance along those same lines for the overall board meeting. And I don't know if any of those who had some input into the change would like to make any other comments.
Okay, well, I think I've spoken enough. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Bencomo.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. Mayor Pro Tem Alcantara.
Thank you, Chair. Barbara, could you read specifically from the JPA what it says about the meetings? Like how frequent that piece, is it a long?
No.
No, okay.
No.
I just want to, I tried to look for it real quick and I lost it. I couldn't find it in my email here.
Let's see. So it says, in section, this is under the section 5 center organization, subsection E, meetings. Meetings shall be conducted in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order. The board shall hold 1 regular meeting each quarter. Special meetings of the board may be called in accordance with the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. And then the notice of meetings will comply with Open Meetings Act, et cetera, and there's some language about the minutes. But, so that's the language related to meetings.
So I asked you to do that because I think there's some flexibility in the event we need to meet a little more regularly. Those special meetings could be identified as the board is meeting and feels it's necessary to talk about whatever work sessions or the like. So I'm feeling that there's some flexibility there, Councilor Flores.
Where is that? What page is that on?
That is at the bottom of page 3.
Oh.
Special meetings, item 2, under section E, meetings.
Oh, yes.
And then I'm also asking if we do move in this direction that Clint provide. We're still going to have our subcommittees. Oh, is that in there, or does it need to be in there?
I believe the subcommittees are covered in the bylaws.
Okay, good. So we're still going to have our bylaw, our subcommittees, And that might need to have further discussion about the frequency by which, but I'm thinking, Clint, that you could do a lot of information, or I don't know, with the Open Meetings Act and rolling quorums and those sorts of things, providing, you know, at least the subcommittee's information specific to, right, that specific committee. So it's gonna rely on, I think it relies on you to have more communication with the board about these areas, from the executive to facilities, right? And it doesn't discount that we meet regularly every month. And I'm not suggesting we meet every month, but I'm just saying we do have a lot of meetings, and this board, I feel, keeps up with those meetings. I think fairly well. Everybody comes, the board that we have now, everybody participates very consistently. So I feel there's still some flexibility. And Clint, you want to say something, I think.
I do. My plan is to continue with the monthly meetings, because there is so much information that goes on monthly, and if we do move it to the quarterly, I mean, information will need to be passed. And so we also have in there a due date of 30 days to get everything for the board meetings. So having a monthly meeting is absolutely mandatory, so that information can be passed around and see what needs to be in 30 days prior to the board meeting, so that information can be reviewed. So that was my plan, to continue with that.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with that. I was a little hesitant, had the same concern as Councilor Flores, but Barbara, as you read it, I feel like there's flexibility still, and then we have all our subcommittees that meet monthly. I think that would be sufficient. Thank you. Chair.
Thank you, Madam
Barbara.
Okay, I think, well, I don't know if there's any additional comments, but at least I think where we're at, well, let me ask this question, because I know Councilor Flores had advised Mr. Thacker that we may want to have the review of the JPA with the attorney for the ASCMV. My question is, do we want to move forward by approving a JPA today and then have it reviewed by the ASCMV attorney before possibly bringing it to the city council and the county commission? Or do we want to look to push this off for another month? I think my preference is not to push it off another month, but I just want to make sure we're doing it, you know, allowing the process to happen appropriately.
Chair Sanchez, just a clarification. The request was for the MOU to be reviewed.
Okay.
The JPA has already been reviewed by the
Okay.
Animal Service Center attorney and our attorney as well, and I believe on the county side as well. I will say that with respect to coming forward to our city council, it would make sense to have both the JPA and the MOU together at council. County, you will just be seeing the JPA.
Yeah.
So if there is this review period by the attorney, then I would expect that it would delay action potentially here for approval and then at the city council.
But at least if but do we need the MOU? If the JPA is going to DFA, then we don't have to, the MOU can come after?
So the JPA does refer to the establishment of an MOU with the city, which is why we were trying to bring them together.
Okay.
So that they could, one wouldn't be lagging the other since they are to be established together.
Okay, and I think if I heard Councilor Flores, if we needed to do any changes, we could, speaking of a special meeting, we could have one to change an MOU if we needed to. If we move forward with approval today, and if for any reason something had to change or the board had to approve something, we could theoretically call another meeting to review or make the appropriate changes with that. On the MOU only. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I was just going to ask if that's the case, then I'd like I said, I would love for us to move forward in a direction of approving the MOU and JPA today. With, I think, so what I understood, or at least what we could have right now, is two potential amendments. I think one that I noted, one was to be for the audit or to allow in the MOU for, well, that would be for the MOU, is that correct?
That is for the MOU, that's
Okay.
correct, Chair Sanchez.
And then, under the JPA, then we would have possibly, we could entertain an amendment on board membership. So,
Yes, those are the two that I'm aware of with respect to amendments. I will say that for our timeline for bringing things forward to council, and as Clint alluded to, we have extensive, or quite a bit of time that needs to be, for review that needs to take place before we bring something to council. So if we were to approve the JPA and MOU here, but then the MOU goes to the Animal Center, at this Animal Service Center attorney for review, I probably wouldn't propose it to go to council until after we know that that review is complete. So that would potentially bring it to council in November, is what I'm thinking.
okay. So, I just wanna, like I said, I know I have my take, but I don't know from the board, is there a direction, do we wanna wait until the MOU review happens, or do we wanna just move forward with, for now, and then we can make adjustments, okay? Councilor Flores?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm looking at Clint, and I think he's going, no, I don't need to see an attorney. Okay, you don't want to see an attorney? Fine.
Okay. So,
You should listen. Listen, listen.
so we'll have, oh,
I'm
sorry, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem, please.
Yes, I forgot, I had it written down here and didn't look down on my notes quick enough, but Clint, there's some discussion about 501c3, and does that need to be a part of the JPA and the MOU?
I would say no, because the 501c3 is a separate entity altogether from the ASCMV. We won't have, it won't be part of us. Their mission will be the ASCMV, but they're not going to be a part of our organization.
What do you mean it's not? It's like a financial arm to you, is what you want it to be. So I don't agree with that statement. And I just want for the city to be aware of some of the work that's been done to try to establish the 501c3, something of a goal of yours for, right, several years, at least since you got here. It's kind of coming to fruition, we think, I don't know, but I don't want there to be a legal issue, particularly for the city. So I'm sounding the Barbara for, because we've had other, it feels like you're not aware, number one.
That is correct, Chair.
Secondly,
Council.
we've had other 501c3s in the city with other pieces of our programming that sometimes we have concern with, or we did, and we've sort of fixed a lot of that. But I don't want this to be an issue. So, hate to say this, but I'm just saying.
Discussion
Yes.
and more in-depth discussion. I was not aware, and the characterization of it being a financial arm does raise concerns with me. So I do think that that's separate, though. The JPA establishes that the city and the county are creating the Animal Service Center as an operating entity in this community. It does not specify under what type of legal structure it operates. So that's why I actually agree with Clint
That it's separate and
it's
apart.
separate from this JPA
Okay,
agreement.
okay, I just want to make sure that that's.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gondara. And I think just for clarity, I know it was just discussed as there's the possibility, I don't know how far that's actually gone yet, but it was the discussion of the Humane Society of Southern New Mexico. I know we have the two, so that was gonna be where we might be able to, at least the discussion was that could potentially be a 501c3 that could be there to support the ASCMV, but I know we can, as we move forward, we'll hopefully have some updates on that to the board.
Yeah, it's brand new possibility, and from my understanding that papers were just barely signed, starting the process just yesterday. So it's not like it's in a full 100% moving forward. It's the very start of the process.
Okay, and I think as long as we're, aware, and I think as Mayor Pro Tem had suggested, so long as everything's kind of being done on the upfront so that everything's done appropriately, so we appreciate that. Okay, so with the JPA, hopefully, I think, and with that in mind, I don't know, I'll entertain an amendment we'll start with the MOU for the right for the city of Las Cruces to audit the ASCMV.
So move. Gandara.
Second by Flores.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, a second by Councilor Flores, to amend the MOU. Are there any questions, comments, public input? Okay, then I'll get a roll call on the amendment to the MOU.
Board Member Weir?
Yes.
Board Member Shelo Hernandez?
Yes.
Board Member Flores?
Yes.
Board Member Gandara?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes,
Passes.
thank you. All right, so the MOU is amended to address the audits. The second would be now on the JPA, on the board membership. I'd entertain a motion probably easier to either select the option one, which would have, as you can see on the screen, 2 elected officials from each city and county, and 2 public, with 2 ex officio members being the city and county manager or designees. So that would be option one. Option two would be 2 elected officials from each the city and county, each city manager, county manager, or their designees, and 1 member from the public appointed by the city and county. So that each would have a total of 8. If there was gonna be an amendment, I don't know if, like I said, it might be easier if we just mention option 1 or option 2.
Pardon me.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a amendment that we go with option 1, including 2 elected officials from the city, 2 elected officials from the county, 2 public members from the city appointed, and 2 public members from the county appointed.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to amend the JPA for board membership for option 1 by Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez. Is there a second? Or I'm sorry, what was that, Commissioner? Got it, okay. Okay.
Barbara, real quick, slide 9.
Okay, so the motion is for for option 1. I will second the motion for discussion. So, sorry, on page 8. Page 8 is the one that's being proposed, or at least the motion was for those on page 8. Are there any questions?
Second, Gandara.
Sorry, we had a motion and then I seconded. No worries. So, like I said, if we wanted to have discussion on the option 1, or this one on slide 8. Any comments, questions? All right, we get a roll call for the amendment as proposed board membership option 1 on slide 8.
Board Member Weir?
Yes.
Board Member Shelo Hernandez?
Yes.
Board Member Flores?
Yes.
Board Member Gandara?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. The JPA board membership, as per the JPA, is amended with 2 elected officials from the city, 2 elected officials from the county, 2 public appointed by the city, 2 public members appointed by the county, and 2 ex officio members, which would include the city manager, county manager, or their designees. Okay. Are there any other comments, questions, amendments to the proposed JPA or MOU? Okay, if not, then I'll ask for a roll call on the MOU and JPA, or Resolution 2023-13 as amended.
Board Member Weir?
Yes.
Board Member Shelo Hernandez?
Yes.
Board Member Flores?
Yes.
Board Member Gandara?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thacker. Thank you, Mrs. Bencomo, for all the work, and everyone else that's been working on the JPA. And thank you, Councilor Flores. Thank you to the members of the board for the discussion. I appreciate it. All right, so item 7C, Resolution 2023-14. It's a resolution to amend the contract for Mr. Clint Thacker, the Executive Director for the ASCMV. The contract will be for approval for, trying to remember, is it 2 years? To 2025, thank you. That's why I was looking through the resolution, so. If I can get a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Sheldon Hernandez.
Second by Flores.
Thank you. Second by Councilor Flores. Are there any questions? Like you said, I know for clarification again that this is for, we'll go run through the 2025. I don't know if there's any questions or comments on this resolution or the contract. All right. And I know for clarification, I know Mr. Thacker had noted, since he had been working on, without an official contract, I do need to send a letter or something indicating that he had continued his employment. And I made a note here, so that way I'll make sure to do it from December of 2021 through today for this approval of the amendment or the contract. So with that, if there are no questions or comments, then I'll ask for a roll call on Resolution 2023-14.
Board Member Weir?
Yes.
Board Member Sheila Hernandez?
Yes.
Board Member Flores?
Yes.
Board Member Gondara?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes,
Motion passes.
it is approved.
Sir,
Your
if I could say something really quick, I just
Yes.
want to tell the board, thank you very much for renewing that. I look forward to 3 more years, at least, of continuing employment. Thank you for your trust. You having me, we're going to do our best to save as many animals' lives as we can. I think that's why you had me come here, and we're going to do our best. I think we have good things looking up for the new center that's going to be opening up, giving us better opportunities, and thank you. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Clint.
Thank you, Clint. All right, so we're in the public input section of our agenda. Are there any members of the public? Not hearing or seeing any, so we'll move on to chair and board comments. Are there any comments from the board? No, seeing shaking heads. So then we'll move on to our last item, which is adjournment. So if there's a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Sheldon Hernandez.
Wait a minute.
Sorry, I just need to clarify, on the agenda, it just gives the date of the next meeting. The time is 10 a.m. It was changed due to some conflict with the council chambers. So we are meeting at 10 a.m. on October
26th.
26th. Thank you.
Thank you. That was gonna be my, right after so we have a motion to adjourn and a second by Councilor Flores, I believe. So if there are no objections, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 10:44 a.m. And as Mr. Thacker's noted, our next meeting will be Thursday, October 26th at 10 a.m. Thank you all very much for coming, and we'll see you next month.
Board members. Everything. Please, thank you.